She thought she was just resting under a tree, but then a giant, strange-looking German shepherd emerged from the tall grass and looked into her eyes. Seconds later, he did something so unexpected it left her in tears and changed her life. Forever, the field stretched out in every direction, golden and endless. Under the late afternoon sun, a single tree stood near the center. That was where she sat, hugging her knees. The argument with her parents still echoed in her head. Voices raised accusations, traded. No one had listened when she tried to explain how lonely she'd been, how invisible she felt in her own home. It seemed easier to walk away, to find a place where no one could yell or pretend. Everything was fine. She rested her chin on her arms and closed her eyes. A part of her almost wished she could stay here, forever, where no one could find her, and where it didn't hurt so much to feel. Alone, a soft rustling in the grass behind her broke the quiet. She lifted her head, frowning. Maybe it was just a rabbit or the wind moving through the weeds, but the sound came again, closer. This time, slowly, she turned and felt her breath catch in her throat. Standing a few feet away was the biggest dog she had ever seen. Its fur was thick and heavy, a mix of deep black and warm tan that shimmered in the sun. Its ears were tall and alert, and its eyes, dark and steady, watched her with an intensity that made her shiver. For a moment, neither of them moved. The dog tilted its massive head as if trying to decide whether she was friend or foe. She felt her heart hammering against her ribs. "Go on," she whispered, her voice. She waved her hand weakly, hoping it would leave, but the dog didn't budge. Instead, it stepped closer, the grass parting around its powerful shoulders. She scooted back until her spine pressed against the tree trunk. The dog stopped, just beyond arm's reach, its gaze never wavering, and though she didn't understand why, she felt the tiniest flicker of curiosity beneath her fear. The dog slowly lowered itself onto its belly, folding its front paws neatly beneath its broad chest. Its enormous head stayed lifted, those dark eyes fixed on hers with an almost human patience. She swallowed hard, unsure what to do. Should she get up and run? Should she yell for help? Even though there was no one around to hear. But the dog didn't growl or bare its teeth. It simply watched her, calm and still, as if waiting for her to decide. Tentatively, she drew her knees closer to her chest and rested her chin on them. "You're not going to leave, are you?" she murmured. The dog blinked, slow and deliberate, as if to answer. A warm breeze rustled its thick fur. Something inside her broke a little. Hot tears welled in her eyes and spilled onto her cheeks before she could stop them. She hadn't meant to cry. Not again, but it felt like the dog could see everything she was trying to hold back. As she wiped her face with the back of her hand, the dog crept forward inch by careful inch. When it reached her side, it lowered its great head onto her knee and let out a quiet sigh, as though it understood exactly how heavy her sadness had become. For a long time, she sat motionless, afraid to even breathe, but the dog didn't move or demand anything of her. Its massive head rested on her knee, warm and strangely comforting. She could feel each slow exhale against her skin, steady and reassuring. She sniffed and wiped her face again. "You're a weird dog," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I don't even know where you came from." The German shepherd's ears twitched at the sound of her voice. Its eyes stayed locked on hers, dark and gentle. She felt a small spark of courage flicker in her chest. "You want to know why I'm out here?" she asked softly. The dog didn't answer, but somehow she felt like he was listening. "So she began to talk about. The argument with her parents, about how small she felt in her own house, about how it seemed like nobody ever really saw her. The words tumbled out faster than she could stop them. The whole time, the dog stayed perfectly still. When she finally fell silent, drained, and hollow, she reached out a tentative hand. Her fingers brushed through his. Thick fur, softer than she expected. For the first time all day, she felt like she wasn't invisible anymore. She sat there for what felt like forever, her hand resting on the dog's thick ruff. The late afternoon lights landed across the field, painting everything in warm gold. The German shepherd lifted his head and looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite name. Something between curiosity and quiet purpose as she stroked the fur along his neck. Her fingers brushed against rough skin hidden beneath. She parted the thick hair and saw a faint scar, a pale line that looked like it had once held a collar or a tag. Her brows knitted together. You had a home once, didn't you? She whispered. Just like me. The dog didn't react, but he shifted slightly, angling his body toward the horizon as if he was thinking about something far away. His gaze turned, steady and unblinking, toward the path leading back to town. She followed his eyes and swallowed hard. You want me to go? She said softly, more to herself than to him. The dog glanced back at her and then returned, his gaze to the path. It felt less like an order and more like an invitation, like he was offering her the courage she didn't think she had. Her heart fluttered, unsure, but she couldn't look away. She drew in a shaky breath and wiped the last of her tears from her cheeks. The dog waited still and patient, as if he knew she needed a moment to find her strength. Slowly, she stood up. Her legs felt unsteady, but she stayed upright. The German shepherd rose too, stretching his powerful shoulders before, turning to face the path that wound back toward the neighborhood. Are you coming with me? She asked in a hushed voice. The dog took a step forward, then looked back over his shoulder, his dark eyes urging her on. She swallowed the tightness in her throat and took her first step, then another. They walked side by side across the field, the tall grass brushing her arms and legs. Every few yards, the dog paused to glance back and make sure she was still behind him. Each time she nodded, her heart feeling lighter than it had in weeks. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows behind them, and though she didn't know where the dog had come from or why he'd chosen to stay, she felt certain of one thing. She wasn't going back alone. Not this time. When the rooftops of her neighborhood finally came into view, she felt her chest tighten. Part of her still wanted to turn around, to run back to quiet, feel where no one expected anything of her. But the dog kept walking ahead, pausing every so often to wait. As they reached the edge of the street, she heard her name being called once, twice, voices frayed with panic and exhaustion. She turned and saw her parents there, faces pale and drawn, moving from yard to yard with frantic urgency. Her mother caught sight of her first. For a second, she just stood there frozen. Then she broke into a run. The girl's heart stuttered as her mother wrapped her in a hug so tight she could barely breathe. Her father joined them, pressing kisses to the top of her head. We've been looking everywhere, he choked out, voice cracking. She wanted to explain everything she'd felt, how lost she'd been, how the dog had found her when she couldn't find herself. But when she turned to point, the German shepherd had stopped a few yards back, watching silently from behind a tree. He didn't move closer. It was as if he knew this moment belonged to her family. She pulled back from her parents, her eyes shining with a mix of relief and determination. "Mom, Dad, wait," she said, her voice small but steady. She turned and pointed to the German shepherd still, stood watching them with quiet patience. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the dog who found me." Her father squinted into the dusk. "You mean he stayed with you this whole time?" She nodded, her throat tightening. "He's my friend. He didn't leave me even when I was crying." Her mother looked at the dog, then back at her daughter, and something in her expression softened. "Honey, are you saying you want to bring him home?" The girl took a deep breath. "Please, I think he needs us as much as I needed him." For a moment, no one spoke. Then her father sighed, a smile breaking through the worry on his face. "All right," he said gently. "We'll figure it out." She turned and held out her hand. The German shepherd stepped from the shadows and walked to her side as if he'd been waiting for permission. From that night on, he was never alone again, and neither was she.